G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is the first in a series of 5 videos I'm going to be doing on making my birthday blade. Now every year I make a knife around my birthday, normally in 5 consecutive days, but in this case it's going to be 5 separate days over the next couple of weeks. And in this case it's not a knife, but a sword, as you saw in the design in the beginning. It's a 1796 style infantry officer's saber, and this is going to be a blunt sparring saber for HEMA, or historical European martial arts. What you see me doing right now is cutting up some 15N20 and some 1084 to create a Damascus billet, and this billet is going to be used to make the knuckle bow and guard for the sword. It's important when making Damascus that you clean all of your steel off relatively well. Sometimes I like to go cleaner than this, but in this case I was using flux, so I didn't have to worry about it being super clean. And I just wanted it to be relatively flat and relatively free of the heavy scale and heavy rust that you normally see on steel that's been lying around in the shop for a while. And I'm just tacking this up. I was actually welding blind at this point because my welding helmet ran out of batteries, so the welds were all over the place because I was doing it with my eyes closed, but we got the thing connected and we welded on a short stub of a handle because we'll be using the big forge, which actually has a forge floor, other than my postbox forge, which doesn't have a forge floor. Normally I'd need a long handle for that. And the reason we're using the big forge today is because this is a rather large billet and wouldn't fit through the door of my postbox. So into the forge it goes. It's important that your forge is already up to temperature when you throw a Damascus billet in the forge, even if you're using flux. You want to get all of that oxygen out. You want the gas, whatever it be, propane or LPG, to be combusting outside of the forge rather than inside. And as we can see here, using Preston, my 25-ton press, to forge weld that material together. And we would want to stop before the steel gets below forging temperature. Normally my first welding heats I tend to do very quickly, and then slowly increase the amount of time that I take in forging, because they're normally consolidated at that point. You saw that we actually had a weld open up there. I just refluxed it and re-welded it, and it held no problem. And that was probably because I used a dissimilar metal electrode to weld my Damascus billet handle on, and that's a stainless based billet, and if there's any gaps in the laminate, then the oxide that comes off of that specific electrode gets between the layers, and because stainless oxides do not weld even with flux, it can destroy your billet weld. I was lucky in that I managed to get rid of the DLAM with some more flux and a little bit more heat. And we're just going to draw this out. I'm looking to get this down to about 10 millimeters long and about 10 millimeters thick, I should say, and about 12 inches long. And that is going to give me enough to make 3 layers out of this. It started at 16. I'm going to turn it into a 48 layer, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Billet. And that's going to be enough for me for the knuckle bow, because I want a relatively bold pattern in the guard. Again, this isn't being used for the blade, this is purely for guard stock and for the back strap. So again, once we've completed the forging, we're going to clean the steel off with an angle grinder, and we're going to cut it into pieces. Having a metal cutting bandsaw makes this a lot easier than using the angle grinder, but you could use an angle grinder or even a hacksaw if you wanted to. Cut the rough ends off, stack it in 3 4-inch pieces, and I'm keeping the billet relatively wide, a lot wider than I normally would, because I want that width for the lugs that are going to become the rain guard on the knuckle bow. So that's for future reference. That's why it's so wide, and you can see that nice squeeze out of the flux there, carrying all of those impurities out with it, making sure that we get a nice even squish across the width of the bar to make sure that we get a perfect weld. And I normally do 2 or 3 forge welds before I do the welds on the sides. In this case I only did 2 because I was pretty sure of those welds. And good thing too, because forging on the side like this is a really good way to open your welds up. They tend to balloon out on you if they don't take properly, but I got pretty lucky, or maybe I know what I'm doing. Who knows? For those interested, I will be uploading a full build video, short full build video, which won't have my voiceover on it. So if you're not interested in the voiceover stuff, I understand, but I figured I'd explain the process while I was making the sword, and then for the full build I'll just upload the actual build content. So I use the narrow fullers there and then transition to the larger fullers purely to speed up this, the time at which it took to draw this out. The wider the fuller, obviously the more pressure it takes to draw the material out, and the longer it's going to take to draw out in general. And so I wanted to speed it up a little bit, get it done in a couple less heats, because I was running out of time for the day. I didn't just do this Damascus bar in the day. The footage you're going to see at the end of this video of me making the blade, it was actually done on the same day. This is all one day's work. And so now I'm doing is flattening out the bar with my hammer and dressing out any marks, because now we're going to start sectioning off material for the guard stock. And we're not using this whole bar for the handle. I'll probably end up having some left over, but first we're going to cut in for the lugs. So that entire end piece is going to get drawn down, and that's actually going to be the knuckle bow. That's going to be the part that goes out and down over the knuckles of the hand on the grip. As of recording this, I haven't actually finished forged the guard yet. This is only being rough forged to shape, and I'm not sure if I want to twist the guard bow yet, or the knuckle bow yet. I may twist it to get a little bit more interest in the pattern, or I may just leave it as is. I'm kind of undecided as yet as to what I'll do with it, but it is currently in an almost square state. And now we're moving on to the top quillin. So this is the rear quillin that will have the penny scroll in it, and that thicker section, the wider section in the middle, those are the lugs that'll end up being the rain guard, which again I haven't forged out yet or anything like that because I ran out of time in the day. So we're just cutting off the material here with a hot cut. And I want that extra width there because I'm actually going to draw that down into extra thickness to then start the penny scroll, because I wanted to do a penny scroll which is very traditional on 1796 British cavalry sabres and infantry sabres. And I want this to be relatively accurate, not perfectly accurate because it will have to be a little oversized in the grip for my Red Dragon fighting gloves for HEMA. But I want it to be as period accurate as I could, but also showy, hence Damascus. And so as you can see, we've dressed a little bit of thickness into it so that we can then do the set down for the penny scroll. And off camera I actually took it to the grinder for a little second and took the rough end off the end. If you notice, the end is now nicely rounded. That was just done on the grinder while the bar was still hot, using a pair of tongs, and that just made it easier to forge because I didn't want to have to risk cold shuts. I will admit this was not the cleanest work I've done on a penny scroll. It fought me the entire time, but it came out alright. Now here I'm actually grinding the slag off of the side of a piece of ADCRB2 that I plasma cut from a larger bar. It's not the sword shape or anything like that. This is all going to be stock removed for the sword, for the blade. This is just ADCRB2 bar At the moment, it's just a tapered bar. It's 1.25" at the thickest, and it narrows down to 1 inch at the tip. And I'm going to then, at the thicker side, cut in the tang 6 inches from the end of the tang, and that's going to give me a full 6-inch handle length and a 33-inch blade length, which is pretty standard for that period. And I didn't bother filming most of the grinding because it's fairly boring. I just smoothed the edges, did a 45-degree chamfer on all of them, and now we need to introduce the bend. Bend is measured by depth, and so basically you would put the bent piece on a straight edge, and the distance between the deepest point and the straight edge would be your depth. In this case, I wanted a 5 centimeter depth of curve, and I got it. And so now we're quenching. I'm using my Don Fog style sword kiln, which I'll have a video on, and I'm quenching in medium speed quench oil, in this case rice bran oil. And this wasn't the same blade. As you notice, this one is straight, but this is showing how I keep them straight after quenching. It's 8 seconds in the quench, and then between the plates, and stood on for another 30 seconds. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but that is glass hard. Trying to cut into the edge of the half round file, not cutting. And now we're tempering using the Don Fog kiln. It's a little finicky, and you have to kind of watch it because you're running a flame rather than through electronics, but this is the way that I temper all of my swords at the moment. I hope to build an oven in the future. But 220 is about what I'm aiming for. And these are all the finished pieces. The 33-inch curved blade, the rough forged knuckle bow, and the finished piece of Damascus. A huge thank you to my patrons who make this kind of content possible. I know I've been away for a little while, but honestly, without my patrons' help, I would not have been able to make a comeback, and I look forward to sharing so much more great content with you in the future. If you want to join my Patreon, the link will be in the description or at the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all had a good time, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.